Flashback 64 is the podcast where Gooey, McKenna, and friends flashback to the 90s and early 2000s with a look at the Nintendo 64's catalog. Starting with the console's launch titles and proceeding in release order, they discuss each game and the contemporary cultural and historical context. We discuss games such as Super Mario 64, GoldenEye, Ocarina of Time, and many more iconic titles, along with the lesser-known games. Follow us on Twitter at Flashback64Pod and listen to us wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri and I am rocking the show solo this week. And when I say I'm rocking the show solo, I'm rocking this intro solo. As we said last week, Dak is traveling this week. Doom was working all over the place and my schedule didn't quite line up with his. So what we decided to do was take the week off and just kind of have a week where we release a piece of old content that we had made a couple months ago that has never been heard before. So we definitely couldn't leave everybody hanging. So one of the things that we got on tap for you today is a Patreon unlock from our Patreon vault. This is a ROM hack review of an amazing spoilers, an amazing Metroid ROM hack. That is a Nestroid ROM hack actually called Junkoid. So Junkoid was put together by P. Yoshi and Mindflower, and it's a really original, really just fun ROM hack. One of the more clever ones that I've played, which I was excited about and felt I should release if we were going to have a week off there. I thought that this might be a cool episode to lead on with, because the sequel to this ROM hack, Super Junkoid, has just come out not that long ago, and I've been really looking forward to playing it. So I haven't quite got around to it yet, but if it's anything like the first one, I think it'll be a really good time. So yeah, you know what? Please enjoy this episode. Like I said, this is a Patreon unlock. We will be back all together next week. Dak's back in town. Doom and me will make our schedules work, and we'll get you guys some new stuff going on here. Until then, everybody, please enjoy this ROM hack review, and we will see you next week. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Metroid ROM Hack Reviews. My name is Andy Spiteri, and today we are going to be diving into the world of a really quirky yet really awesome Nestroid hack called Junkoid. And I want to let me just say something up front here. I don't know what it is. I have had a heck of a time with the name of this game, and I don't know why. I wanted to call it Junktroid, and that was what I called it for like the first little while. When I was like downloading this game and playing it, I was like, all right, time to play Junktroid. And then I was like, no, that's not right. It's not Junktroid. It's Junkroid with an R. And I was like, all right, I finally learned to call it Junkroid. And then I was like, you fool, there's no R, dude. It's Junkoid. The game is called Junkoid, Andy. So, if you hear me call it Junktroid or Junkroid, just know that I tried. I don't know what it is. I feel like it's just in my brain where I just want to call this game like Junkroid or Junktroid or something like that. I think it's the Troid in Metroid, you know what I mean? It's like, you can replace the Met, but when you replace the other stuff, it's just, it's very weird. But that's probably appropriate, because I feel like this ROM hack is very weird, and weird in like a really, really good way. So let's just dive right in. Let's just dive right into here. I've been a little bit slow this month, like I said on the Spiteri show, to get stuff out. So I feel like we have no time to waste, and yeah, I'm fired up to get going about this game. I have a lot to say about it. A really, really interesting ROM hack. I'll say it right at the top, and I'll elaborate on it at the end of the show. I think this is one of the best ROM hacks that I've played. I remember when I was doing the episode last month for Vitality, I kind of made it an off-the-wall comment about how, like, you know, it is really good to see, like, these remixes of the games and whatever, but to me, like, the big draw is seeing, like, a new world created or using those games as, like, a template for something new rather than just kind of mixing what we already have. And Junkoid definitely does that. So this hack was made by P. Yoshi and music by Mindflower, and these guys really knocked it out of the park. You can tell immediately when you look at any of the screenshots that this is a very different kind of Metroid ROM hack. And one of the things that you can tell right away is that, at least in my mind, it really only uses Metroid as like a complete blueprint. And what I mean by that is like all the other games that we've played so far, like Metroid Rogue Dawn, for example. That was a Metroid game telling a Metroid story with Metroid characters that was maybe trying to be like an expanded universe. And Super Duper was kind of a remix on an already existing classic. Ditto with Vitality. Balls to the Walls was kind of a weird side project. This is like its complete own thing. And in fact, there's no mention of any Metroid stuff anywhere. You do not play as Samus, and there are no Metroid, space pirates, nothing. So it's very cool. So it really only uses like the Metroid game, Nestroid, as like a base foundation rather than like an identity to use throughout the game. So like I said, you play as a new character, and as far as I can tell, this new character is never named. She kind of looks like Peppermint Patty a little bit, in my humble opinion. Or like something that you would see in a Peanuts cartoon strip. It's very charming. She's very charming. But yeah, so there's no context to anything. One of my favorite parts about Rogue Dawn was that it kind of bundled in with it like a map and like a synopsis and stuff like that, what was going on. And Vitality did something similar. And this one, you're just kind of like, all right, well, I guess I'm playing as Peppermint Patty on this new planet. And I actually feel like I'm totally okay with that, because like I said last month, like you can only play like the same remixed Metroid games a couple different times before it starts to feel a little bit similar. So this one was a nice shot in the arm. Speaking of the new character, Peppermint Patty, let's just call her Peppermint Patty. So you're playing as Patty, and you're on a completely new world, which is also very cool. So like lots of new sprites, new stuff is in this world. You still have like the basic foundation that Zebes laid out in Nestroid, and like there's a lot of like black backgrounds. But there are a lot of really new and interesting sprites in here. The first area that you'll start off in is kind of like a snowy area, actually, where like there's snow falling, there's like pine trees, there are cobwebs everywhere around the planet. So it's a very like there's lots of really impressive sprite work here. In fact, I could be wrong. Somebody that's more knowledgeable than me could call me out on this, but I think that basically every enemy sprite is a new sprite created for this game. I'll talk about this in a little bit too. Like everything functions similarly, but almost everything has a new and unique sprite, which I feel like really just goes a long way into kind of shaping the identity of this game. Again, like I said, like it's not just another Metroid ROM hack. It's something that's using that as a base and doing something that is like completely different. So I think that that's really cool. But I will say, for better or for worse, the physics of the game are definitely still, rooted in what we know from Nestroid, which I actually feel like that's okay. I don't think that there's like a problem with those physics, but I know that some people don't love them. But I think that they're okay. Like I grew up on Super Metroid and like the the floaty controls, or if you will. So I was at home with it, and I played a lot of Nestroid this year, but it definitely might take people that aren't as familiar a little bit to adjust to like how some of the jumps work and all that stuff. But it also has the same annoying thing in Nestroid as where when you go through a door and like the screen is transitioning, enemies can still hit you while you are like completely and utterly defenseless. So that kind of sucks. But I feel like that's more of a fault of the original base game than it is of this ROM hack, because I think inherently a ROM hack in terms of physics can only be as good, as its game that it's hacking. So that is one thing that is a little bit annoying here. But other than that, the physics are all exactly the same. I like them, so that's actually a positive for me. But it controls like you remember, but everything is like a new experience. And I want to detail some of the stuff. So, like I mentioned, there are a lot of equivalents in this game. So, like, for example, there are these really big hands that float around. In fact, to anybody that's played Zelda, they kind of look like wall masters. You know those really annoying enemies that will grab you? They come from the shadows, they grab you, and they take you back to like the start of the dungeon. They're the worst. They're the worst enemies. And there are these hand-looking things that float around, and those function in the exact same way that Metroids do. So when they grab you, you have a heck of a time shaking them off. And that's not all. So like there's, like for example, in the final area, there are these spores that kind of look like they're coming from Spore Spawn, but they're actually the equivalent of Rinkas. And there are like lots of different enemies that function in the exact same way. Like, a lot of enemies are exactly the same as like a Zoomer or a Geemer, but they are just a different pixel work. And that applies to a lot of the other stuff that is found throughout this game as well. Chozo statues are not a thing in this game because, like I said, it doesn't really acknowledge Metroid in any way. So instead, you have a Grim Reaper. So he's just doing his thing. The Grim Reaper statue. I don't know if it's a statue or actually if it's just like a regular old Grim Reaper, but this is the guy that gives you power-ups if you can find them. Some of these are wild, actually. Some of these replacement things. So we have, instead of missiles, we have baseballs. So you can throw baseballs at people. I think they're baseballs. I don't know. They look like baseballs to me. So I've been calling them baseballs. So yeah, you have that instead of missiles, which is actually, and there's not a missile door to be seen in this game. I think I came across like one. So I feel like you always have actually a nice supply of baseballs at your disposal, which is very nice. And this one isn't as crazy. It's actually pretty straightforward. But instead of energy tanks, you just have got a heart. So you kind of got like a heart container like you would find in Zelda. And as far as I could tell, there was an equivalent amount of energy tanks and missiles, or baseballs and hearts, I should say, as there were to missiles and energy tanks. So that is, again, similar, just kind of rejigged a little bit. Instead of like the different power-ups that you can get, like the long beam or the wave beam, stuff like that, you get rings, which is actually like, I mean, it's cool, but one thing about this game is that you'll pick up an item, but you don't really know what it's used for. Because there's 3 different rings that you can get, and after each one, I was kind of like, what is this? What does it do? There's no start menu for you to pause and for you to go into like your menu so that you can actually see that. But hey, I guess we'll take what we can get. So there's a lot of different. So basically, every single power up that was in Nestroid is in this game, except as far as I can tell, and I did not 100% this game, so I could definitely be wrong. But I did not find an equivalent for the screw attack. So that's the only thing that I did not find an equivalent for. I bet you it's probably hiding out somewhere, and I just didn't find it. But I did not have it, at least on my initial playthrough. I would have loved to seen what that equivalent would be. This one, oh my god, this one was so good. So instead of a morph ball in this game, you turn into a rat. That's right. You are a rat, and that's how you get into those sneaky small places. There's no context. There's no explanation. You are just a rat, and it's even better actually later because you get the bombs, and the bombs are essentially the exact same thing. You just lay a bomb as a rat, and it sends you skyrocketing. It seems like the physics are you're lighter or something like that when you're a rat, but I loved this. It was so weird and so random, and this game already kind of has that vibe about it that I was like, okay, that makes total sense in the context of this game where there is no context, that I would be turning into a rat instead of morphing into a ball. I guess when you think about it, morphing into a ball is kind of random too. Maybe Samus should have turned into a rat all those years ago instead. But yeah, so Peppermint Patty turns into a rat, gets those bombs, and you're off and running. It was a while for me before I was able to acquire the rat ball, if you will. I think I got most of the beam power-ups first, except for the ice beam. The ice beam is actually like the big ticket item in this game. But I went and got the long beam first, the high jump after that. I got the wave beam, which was awesome. I got that after beating the first boss, which I'll elaborate on in a bit. And then I finally got the rat ball. And actually, I didn't get the bombs until I was almost basically done with the game. So kind of like Metroid Dread almost, where it's like it's keeping these Metroid power-up staples from you for a long time to kind of make you appreciate, what you don't have. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. So and the ice beam. The ice beam was like I said, it was the big ticket item. So this Junkoid kind of rejigged how the entrance to Torian works, if you want to say that, where in Nestroid you have to beat the two bosses, and then there'll be a platform that will take you across and you go into Torian, whereas in Junkoid you beat the two bosses, the platform will go across, and then in that way you can just go and get the ice beam, which I'll elaborate on in a little bit, because I tried. You can go into the final area without it, but it is not a fun time. One great thing that this game does is allow you to stack the wave beam and the ice beam. So MVP move, because that drove me nuts in the original Nestroid, is that you cannot stack those two beams. I actually just don't really like it all when you can't stack beams in general. I feel like, with the exception of some, like in Super Metroid, I feel like that's fine. Or Metroid Prime, obviously, which has a different kind of gimmick going for it. But yeah, this one, thank the good Lord, they allow you to stack the wave and the ice, and it makes the final area significantly more bearable, because the final area is pretty tough. But yeah, this game, the sprite work, the originality, the substitutions, I guess you'd call them, are a really refreshing feel that I think really gives this game a good identity, even though, like I said, it's using all of the same power-ups, it's using most of the same enemies. It feels really fresh, and it feels really different. So one other thing that I want to talk about, some of the just game-specific mechanics here. One other thing that Junkoid does, which is awesome, although maybe not as awesome as in Rogue Dawn, because it doesn't have it throughout the game, but at least in the opening area, if you press pause, by God, you get a mini-map. And anyone that's ever heard me on the Omega Metroid podcast, or anytime I talk about Nestroid specifically, has heard me complain and bitch and moan about the fact that there is no map in this game. Because with a map, that is a completely different experience, and it's way more fun. But if you don't have a map, it's God, this sucks. Where am I? I was just here. Where do I go? So, luckily, this game makes the good decision to give you a mini map, which is very helpful, especially in the opening area, because you kind of have one hub area, and then it's from that one hub you can access almost all of the other areas. I'll talk about the areas in a second here, but it's especially helpful for that opening area, because The other ones are kind of more like self-contained, which is very nice. But if you were going back and forth and trying to trying to find out where exactly you needed to go without a map, I think I might not be heaping as much praise as I am right now. But yeah, so that is really awesome. Another thing that this has that's a good game mechanic is throughout the world, I want to say there's at least one in each area. There is a hot spring. So you can just go, jump in the hot spring, chill out for a minute, and your health is going to refill. So, very cool. I don't believe that they were present in Nestroid. Although now that I'm saying that, I can't be 100% sure that there wasn't something that would recharge your energy tanks in that game. But certainly that was something that was introduced in Metroid 2: Return of Samus. But it is in this game, and it's quirky. There's usually someone that's already in the hot spring waiting for you. You know what, actually? That's something about this game. Is there's like, I guess we'll call them non-playable characters, just kind of hanging out around the world. And they're weird non-playable characters too. Like, some of them are animals, some of them are just people hanging out. Some of them are like weird inanimate objects, like a snowman. But these guys are just hanging out. You cannot interact with them. You can't talk to them. You can't hurt them. But they're there, by God, and I like to think that they're wishing you luck in your journey on this nameless planet that I guess we'll just call Planet Junkoid. But yeah, that's a great feature. Nice to have, somewhere where you can recharge. Again, I think that's a nice quality of life upgrade that even as soon as the second Metroid game, I think they realized that, it was something that the series should have. I didn't mention actually about the mini-map, or maybe I did. I just didn't. I just want to make it clear in case I didn't make it explicit. Once you go to the other areas, you do not have a mini-map anymore. That's why I'm not giving it like the full Monty thumbs up like I am in Rogue Dawn. But I feel like that's bearable, and I'll talk about that when we actually get to the different areas. One thing that this game has, which is a just total godsend, which again makes this so much better and more enjoyable to play, is it has a built-in rewind feature, much like you would see with Nintendo Switch Online. And, I think that if you play Nestroid with the rewind feature and with a map, it's actually like a really fun game. But, of course, it did not release with those functions and with those abilities. I give that game a lot of slack. It's 35 years old, 36 years old at this point. So I'm willing to look past that. But I feel like I'm a little bit less willing to look past when other games do that. I've complained about some Super Metroid hacks before that don't show you where items are on the actual map. Like they have the circle gimmick like they had in Metroid Fusion and Zero Mission. Luckily, Junkoid just kind of... It knows what's up. It's like, all right, a rewind feature makes this inherently more playable, inherently more enjoyable, and it's a much, much welcome feature in this. And it's kind of cool, too, because you have two different speeds. So that's kind of neat. You can slowly go if you want to be more precise, or you can hammer down both triggers on your controller, or whatever it is on mouse and keyboard for you mouse and keyboard folk, and you can, zoom right back. It's super charming to see. It just reminds me of the old VHS days or whatever. And there's no limit on it either, like Nintendo Switch Online. So that is very cool, and it's honestly a big game changer, which is great to see. And then just like the other mechanic too, I guess it's not really a mechanic per se, but one thing is that I think even more than in Nestroid is if you speak the Metroid language, a lot of the secrets are there for you to discover. You know what I mean? Like once you play a game long enough, you can kind of get the feel for how that game operates and its subtle hints and stuff like that. For example, if you're playing a Zelda game and you see a wall and it looks kind of different than a lot of the other walls around there, if you speak the Zelda language, you're probably thinking to yourself, I bet you I could bomb this wall. Or when you see a circle of rocks, and you're like, I wonder what happens if I bomb the center, or something like that, right? That's what I consider speaking the language of the series. And I feel like I speak the Metroid language very well. I've played every game there is, and gotten every power up that you could possibly get in this series. But even like I have kind of a little bit more of a tough time in Nestroid, because like so many of the, I guess, like the secrets or like hidden passageways or like hidden items, they just feel like so completely random. Whereas this game, I feel like it has a little bit more of a method to it, where you could say like you'll be on one screen and there's a power up that's just out of view, so you can go back to the screen that's over it and be like, all right, well, it's out of view, so there might be an entrance hidden if I scale upwards here, and you can do so, and you can find a hidden entrance by turning into a rat or whatever, right? Like, so I think that this game does a much better job at like speaking and conveying that that Metroid language to its player, for lack of a better term. So does that very, very well. All right, let's talk about the music of this game. And as I mentioned, a gentleman by the name of Mindflower created the music, and I can't even begin to tell you guys, at least for me, how far original music goes to like really making a great Metroid ROM hack. Like I feel like you can have a good Metroid ROM hack, and if it has like an original score, I feel like it's automatically elevated to great, even if I'm not like totally in love with each song. I just think like the fact that you have original compositions, you have original music, I just think that that's like so impressive and like shows the care and shows the dedication. And the soundtrack for this game is awesome. It's it's really, I would say that not every track is like a 10 out of 10, but there's a lot of tracks that are very solid, very listenable. I'm hoping that they, I don't know, release it on YouTube or something like that. If you check it out, one piece that stuck out to me specifically was the theme that plays in the area known as Trench. That theme is awesome, and that's the theme that I started this episode on, and I'm ending it on the what's like the main theme that plays in the main hub world. But I just wanted to shout out the music here, because I feel like it just really, really adds to the experience. And like I said earlier, like I feel like I'm at the point now, I'm 6 months in, and one of the most important things that a Metroid ROM hack can do is establish its own identity. And original music really, really helps with that. Like I said, even if it's not your cup of tea, at least it is, I can hear this theme and I'm like, oh, it's Junkoid, versus when I'm playing Vitality or Super Duper Metroid and I'm like, okay, it's the Meridia theme, even though Meridia doesn't exist on this planet or is reshuffled or whatever, right? So it very much helps that it has an original soundtrack, and the cherry on top is that the soundtrack is awesome, and Mindflower did a fantastic job. So shout out to him, and again, just can't overstate how much it really, really helps to have that when you are playing. All right, let's talk about some of these areas in this game, and I guess there's not really a story, but there might be something I would consider a spoiler in here in one of the areas. So listen at your own discretion. I will tell you when the story or the spoiler part starts, so that you can fast forward if you want to. By the way, patrons, has anyone like played any of these games that I've been reviewing so far for yourself, just to kind of check them out? I know that we had some Vitality going on the 3DS for Wombat, and I still need to figure out how to hack my 3DS, because if I could play these on the 3DS, oh my god, dude, that would be absolutely something else. But I would love to know if you guys have any thoughts on these games yourself. But anyways, let's talk about these areas. So the first area, like I mentioned, I don't know if it has a name or not. I'll just call it like the hub, and it's a nice little area. It's kind of it's like Brinstar-esque, as you'd probably imagine. Lots of original, cool new sprites. The theme song is sweet, and you can connect to every other area except for one. And it's kind of cool because you can connect to any area that you want, essentially like right away. You're just going to find that if you go down to the second area, that you're not going to make it very far. If you go down to the third area, I really don't recommend that because you are going to have a tough time, and I learned that from experience. So yeah, just a nice, easy to navigate world. A little bit more like, one thing that bothered me with the Metroid Rogue Dawn map is that there were a lot of these areas that were like, they looked like dead-end tunnels, but what it was is like a loop. So you could, for example, if you were in a vertical hallway, it looked like there was a bottom to it and a top to it, but it was actually just a loop. So if you went down, you'd keep falling, and when you hit the bottom, you'd go to the top, and then you keep falling, and the cycle repeats, and blah, 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 blah. This map is a little bit more straightforward. It's like, this is where you can go, there's a room here, there's not a room here. It was much more Super Metroid that way. No kind of weird... There was no funny business going on with this map, so that was really nice. And it did make it, like I said, quite easy to navigate and easy to get your first couple of power-ups. So the first area is called Trench, which kind of makes sense because it's like it's not what I would call a water level, but there's like water stuff in the background. Like you can see waves and you can see like spouts and stuff like that. So like I mentioned, the music is absolutely awesome. I was bopping to this like actually so hard. I was singing to this. I was just like, my cat Zora was beside me, and like the beat was going. I was like, Zora, just like do it. I sounded like a complete psychopath actually, but I liked it so much that I was like singing and bopping, and I'm sure my wife was about to call the cops. But all that to say is that the music is so awesome. And the area is pretty good too. It's like a standard, nice little area. I wouldn't say that there was anything that really stuck out to me. It was solid. It was put together well. I feel like I still have some secrets to find in this area, although I think I did a pretty good job at exploring it. But I'm sure that there's probably something hidden that I missed. But yeah, lots of... it sounds almost silly to say. I was going to say lots of blue in this area. But I guess I guess color is kind of important when you're talking about the NES Metroid game, or really like any kind of NES title. Like a lot of, like, I just played the original Legend of Zelda. I keep on going back to Zelda, I'm sorry, but you know me. But I just played the original Zelda game, and like basically a lot other than the layout, the only difference between all the dungeons in that game is just like the color of the tiles. So color was definitely a big important part of those dungeons and just building blocks in early NES games. So that was something that I noticed, was like it was a very blue area, not down, just color blue, which going back to what I said, I guess makes sense because that was the trench area. So yeah, nice solid area. The second area I think was probably the coolest area in the game actually though. This area was called Heart. And the music was good. First of all, let's start with that. The music was good. It wasn't as much of a bop as the Trench theme song. That Trench song, man, that just goes so hard. But Heart, I thought, had a much cooler gimmick. So it was almost shaped like an elevator, almost. So the gimmick is that when you go into Heart, you have the rat. The rat ball, but you do not have the bombs yet. And there are a bunch of cobwebs on the floor, which you can shoot to drop down. But of course, in Nestroid, you cannot shoot underneath you. You can only shoot up or beside you. So you can't actually hit them. So without the bombs, it might as well just be like solid concrete floor, right? So it's really interesting because it actually numbered like the levels. So there's like level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you'd have to go either right or left and kind of traverse through a series of rooms to drop down and get to like the second area. So it was kind of like, imagine a line and like an S shape that's kind of weaving in and out and even in and out. Or maybe a DNA strand almost would be a better way for people to visualize it. But it was very cool. I like that gimmick a lot. And you never did get the bomb while you were in this area, but what you did acquire was the wave beam. And the wave beam at least like flutters a little bit, and it will let you get the cobwebs that are on the ground if you're standing at the right angle, so you can drop down. So they use that to really great effect. One thing that really stuck out to me in Heart was that there was a lot of like really cool platforming. Actually, I wouldn't say that any of the other areas necessarily had like what I would call tough platforming, but like when you're playing Nestroid, there are some parts where like you have to be jumping over lava or over whatever, and you have to be fairly precise so that you don't fall in and that you don't kill yourself and all that jazz. And I think that this area, more than any other, really kind of had that going for it. So I appreciated that because the layout was different. What you actually had to do was very different. And I guess I should mention too that the aesthetic was really cool actually. So it kind of like, for any of you guys out there that have played Axiom Verge, like the opening area of that game where there's like the red bloody bubble things that you can shoot, or like once you get your drill you can just like drill right through them. It's almost like the entire area is made up of this. It looks very cool, and I think it's just like a deep red coloring of like the Norfair pixels, but it really fits the theme of like Heart. So I thought that this was probably my favorite area just because it had a little bit of everything. It had good platforming, it had good music, it had cool aesthetic, it had like new tougher enemies, but it's what happens after Heart that is wild. And this is, you could maybe consider this a spoiler, I don't know. Skip ahead 5 minutes if you don't want to be spoiled on anything, but here we go. So once you get to like the 8th level or something like that in Heart, you go all the way down. I was expecting to find a power-up, but instead what I found was an elevator to another area. And this is the only area that is not attached to anything else. And dude, this was weird. So you got in an elevator and you went down, and all of a sudden the music is like creepy and different. The hue of the game has changed. There's like a violet kind of filter over everything. And for whatever reason, Peppermint Patty is not wearing any clothes, which is kind of weird. So I was just like, okay. And to make it even more weird, there's a bunch of test tubes around with like little peppermint patties inside. So I was kind of getting flashbacks of Vitality, actually. I was like, what are the chances that I'm playing 2 games with test tubes and naked protagonists back to back? But here we are. So yeah, it was a weird sight there, and again, there's no context. Nothing was really explained. Maybe there's some Junkoid lore out there that I don't know about. If anyone does know, I would love to know. Hit me up with that. But there were also, I think it was implied that there were more peppermint patties, because on the ground there were like, how do I even say this? It kind of looked like an 8-bit dog shit on the ground. And I think it was supposed to be like a smushed up peppermint patty that was on the ground, or like a former you that was killed and like made into like meat, basically. If this sounds weird, I promise you it is weird. It's very weird. So when you get to that area, and it's a weird tonal shift too, actually, because like, I don't know, the game isn't very serious, but this area is just like so out of left field, so weird, so creepy. But anyway, so you get there, and one thing that is also different is that your health and your ammo are obscured. So it just has a question mark instead of like, this is how much health you have, this is how many baseballs you have left. So like the whole thing is like very, very trippy. But I will say that it does a really good job of kind of routing you in the way that you need to go. Because what you get at the end of this area is finally the Morph Ball Bomb, or the Rat Ball Bomb, which you get after beating the boss. So it does kind of, it's almost like one big circle where it directs you in a really easy way. There, like I said earlier, there's still like, you can still get lost and explore and stuff like that, but I think it does a good job of like keeping you on track. But it's a very weird area, very different tone shift, just to a weird place. But yeah, spoiler over. So the last area is basically like your Torian. And I forget what it's called, but it's called something weird. And this was okay. It was a pretty fun area. It was like it was a little bit similar to Heart, I felt, in that it was like kind of organic looking almost. Music was fine. This area was filled with those like Wallmaster Metroid things everywhere, and there were a ton of the Zebatites. They were called Zebatites, but they function in a similar manner. Except they weren't in front of the final boss. They were just like obscuring your path, which was kind of a pain in the butt. So I meandered my way down here without the ice beam, which was a horrible mistake because I was just getting eaten alive by these stupid Wallmasters. But yeah, this area is pretty brutal. It certainly is a lot more easy with the ice beam. But there's a lot going on. There's some tight platforming. You get deeper and deeper. This area has a point of no return. So if you're playing this game and you are gonna make a save state before you drop down the long tube into the final boss room. Do not do what I did and not make a save state. And I really messed it up actually because I made a save state and then I closed my game. And I was like, I'll do the final boss later. So I couldn't even rewind to get back. So it's pretty tragic. So don't do what I did. But yeah, this is a fun area. And actually, like I said, like all the areas are fun. I think that this game, like I kind of mentioned earlier when we were talking about speaking the Metroid language, Nestroid, a lot of times I feel like just kind of throws you out there and it's like, okay, go. And, I think that's definitely a thing of the era. A lot of games did that. But this game actually, I'm going to make a comparison here that might seem weird. But it kind of reminded me of Metroid Dread, almost in a sense. Where, like, I feel like in Dread, you have a lot of freedom to go and explore and get power-ups and do your own thing. But I also think that, like, the game is really, really good at just, like, smartly nudging you towards where you need to go next, right? Like after you get the speed boost, for example, in Dairon, you're nudged to go back, not back to Berenia where you came from, or at least the entrance that you came from originally, but shine spark up and use the yellow teleportal to go to a new destination. And this isn't quite the same, but I feel like it does kind of route you in a way where it's like, okay, now you've got this, I'm gonna kind of funnel you back to the beginning of the area so that you can go up the elevator, go back to the hub, and then now you can challenge the final area of the game. So I think that this is it did a really good job of that. Really quick, let's talk about the bosses here. I don't know. So again, there's no context here, but Ridley and Kraid were replaced with penguins. That's right. Instead of fighting the giant dragon and a big ol' whatever Kraid is, you are fighting two penguins. And the first one was kind of Kraid-esque. I can't tell if it was Kraid or maybe it was Ridley. It was super easy. I was able to beat it my first try, so maybe it was Ridley, because Ridley is like stupid easy in Nestroid. Although I don't think so. The second one was a bigger penguin. And I think that this one was more so modeled after the Ridley fight because there were a lot of like spores that were shooting out, and you could freeze them. But this guy was tough. He gave me a tough time. He's kind of being a little bee, actually. I had to reset a few times and finally take him down. But you fight the first boss at the bottom of Trench, and after that you get what do you get? I think you get the rat ball. And then you fight the second boss at the bottom of that weird violet area, and you finally acquire the bombs after beating him. So that was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't like completely dissimilar from from the bosses that we've know and love from Nestroid. So I would probably give Rogue Dawn an edge in that category. I think it was a little bit more creative with some of its bosses, but still solid fights. The final boss, though, man, that was weird. So same kind of idea as Mother Brain, where you have stuff coming from all over the screen at you. You have these little spores that are kind of acting like Rinkas. You don't have turrets shooting at you, so that's good. But you do have the final boss itself shooting at you, so maybe that is a 1-for-1. So, the final boss... How do I even describe this? The final boss has like a snake kind of body. So imagine a snake, and it's coiled in that, so it's in like a C shape, okay? So its head is at the top, and its tail is just like right underneath its head, and the rest of its body is coiled up like right underneath it. And it's got like a little flame on its tail, so you cannot stand on it and shoot this guy, which would have been an awesome strategy, which I tried. I tried a lot of things fighting this boss. He was tough. And the guy's head, the best way I could think of to describe it is he has a snake body with like a Lord Voldemort head. Because it's like this snake ball-esque looking thing on top of this creepy tail. And the dude's just shooting fireballs at you. You got spores coming at you from everywhere. This was tough. This was a brutal boss fight. I had a heck of a time with it. I think I rewound a bunch of different times. You know what, actually, if you head over to my Twitch page at the ZeldaCast, you could see me fight this final boss, and you can see that I am struggling big time with it. He was tough, but eventually, after a few baseballs, a few rewinds, a few strategic ice beam shots to these spore spawns, I was able to defeat him. And the escape sequence ensued, as every good Metroid game or hack should have. So I got out of there, and I got the sweatsuit ending. So Peppermint Patty was in a sweatsuit. So I don't know what you get for other endings, anything like that, but I was perfectly okay with the sweatsuit ending. I did not get a time or an item percentage, which is a little bit disappointing. I like to just keep track of that when I'm playing these games. But it looks like it's basically just based on the same thing that Nestroid is based off of. Yeah, so it looks like endings are based in the same way that Nestroid is based off of, where it's strictly time related. You know, one thing that I did not learn about this game is I actually don't know how you save. And I'm thinking of that and just realizing it as I'm speaking right now. Because I was about to say, there's no passwords or anything in this game. So you can't input any passwords to see any alternate endings and stuff like that. But I also I'm not really sure how you save in this game. I mean, of course I save using save states in my emulator, but I am not completely sure how you would do that on how the game intends you to do that. So just throwing that out there for everyone as well. But yeah, I mean, I think start to finish, this game was so unique, had such a unique identity, and I feel like I've been harping on that this episode, but I just feel like that's so important, especially as we get deeper into our journey here in these ROM hacks. So yeah, I felt like this really delivered in that regard. It very smartly masked up the fact that it was reusing a lot of the same functionality, brought in a ton of new assets, new sprite work, new music. It was really, really well done. I would say this is one of my favorite Metroid ROM hacks that we've played so far, actually. And I really I started off with Super Duper and Rogue Dawn because I heard that those were the best two and the king of Metroid ROM hacks. And I think that I would put this one right up there with those games. So yeah, I came away. I was really impressed with this. I definitely recommend that you guys check it out. It's real weird. And it's not too long either. You could probably power through this in I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4 hours at most if you really want to get crazy and go explore everything. But yeah. So shout out to P. Yoshi and Mindflower for making an awesome hack here. I was really, really impressed with this, and I hope that they keep on making more, because this hack actually isn't really even that old. It came out I want to say 4 or 5 months ago, something like that. So still like lots of really, creative people out there doing really cool things in the Metroid hacking community. So yeah, that is Junkoid. Very cool, neat little title that you guys should check out. So just want to say, of course, to everyone listening to this, thank you so much for supporting Omega Metroid over on Patreon. It really means a lot to me. And actually, so I saw today that we had surpassed 100,000 downloads on the podcast, and I was looking at the analytics for the website, and like every metric was up, and it's so awesome to see that. It feels very rewarding and gratifying, and without everyone that's going to be listening to this has been like a core listener from the start, I feel like. So it's just it's awesome. Thank you so much. I don't want to get weepy or emotional or anything here, but it's been awesome, and I was reflecting today with Dak about where we started versus where we are now, and what a journey it's been. So yeah, and the journey's not over. I've already got my game picked out for next month, so that's going to be fun. And you know what? Nobody fought me back on this, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to throw in a Zelda ROM hack in the upcoming months as well, just to get a little bit of a different spice in the stew, if you know what I'm saying. So that's going to be awesome. But yeah, that is it for this episode of ROM Hack Reviews. Thank you, as always, for supporting over on Patreon. And I will see you guys back here in the next couple weeks with the latest Spiteri show and the next ROM Hack Review. So, until then, everybody, take care.